Ladies and lads, welcome to the video, and today, as promised, I'll be talking about Bleach. Everything that I liked about it, and now everything that I hate about it. Well, not necessarily everything, but we are going to touch upon the specific point of no return, where everything changed. Bleach still has a special place in my heart because of my history with it, and I'll be talking about it in this video. But I cannot sit here and tell you that it is something that is still immersive. Like, no. And I've talked about it in my previous videos, how important it is for me as a future writer to keep my audience completely immersed in whatever word I present to them. And in this case, the immersion was broken, and the way it happened is just so bad. You can't take a story seriously after that. Couple of things to mention before I start. I'll be only talking about the anime because, like I've said many times before, I am an anime only guy at the moment. I've never read the manga, and I don't have any intentions of doing so anytime soon. So that is the only thing I'll be talking about. The second thing is that if you haven't watched the first part of the final arc, the 1,000-year Blood War Part 1 in the anime form. If you haven't watched that, do not watch this video. I'll be spoiling all the way up to that point. Also, something else regarding this video, since I'll be showing footages of the anime, it puts me at risk of getting flagged here on YouTube for copyright. So I'll be doing some editing trickery to try to avoid that. So if you see that the footage is a bit not clear or something, that is the reason why. My story with Bleach starts all the way back in my home country, Cameroon. I want to say back in around 2007, maybe 2006, all the way till 2008, in that range. The way I got introduced to it was, yes, obviously I've seen images of Bleach, but I've never really got the chance to check it out because back in the day, it wasn't common for people to have internet at home. The only way for you to be able to go online was you have to go to internet cafe, buy time and go online. That was the only way for you, unless your family was very healthy and you were able to have internet at home, but that was not our case. So the way I truly got introduced to Bleach was my other brother who was here in Canada. He was like, yo, have you checked out this anime called Bleach? It's like Naruto and One Piece, but they fight with sword, and it's pretty cool. I was like, really? Maybe I'll check it out. Because at that time, we have been already introduced to Naruto, and the way we consumed Naruto back in the day was, yes, we were introduced to it through cable TV, but the schedule was very slow. I don't remember how many episodes it was per week, but it was very slow. But I remember we watched it from the beginning, OG Naruto, of course, from the beginning all the way to the introduction or the beginning of the Chunin exam. And then my best friend, or one of my best friends, Blondell, one day he brought a pirated CD, a bunch of them, from the beginning of the anime all the way, I believe, to actually the end of Naruto, pretty much. And that's how we used to consume anime back in the day. The only way for me to really experience Bleach was to go out of my way to try it out. And since I was still a beginner in this way of consuming anime, I really needed to be interested in that anime to watch it. My true first introduction to Bleach was not through an anime, it was through a game. It was the Hit the Soul 4. And I remember specifically because it was, I believe that's when they introduced Arrancar on the Arrancar arc. And one thing I will never remember was the Nell 2 super. That super was so memorable because she's like, Nell 2, don't the joker, And then they did the fourth again. Oh my god. I will never forget that. It was so funny. And that is one of the things that stuck to my mind. I was like, yo, this is funny. Maybe I'll check it out. And the game was in Japanese, so I didn't understand anything of what these characters were saying. So I couldn't even play the story mode. So I was only playing like a free battle or mission or whatever. So at some point I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try out Bleach. So I asked my brother, I was like, yo, do you know a good internet cafe where I can go and watch maybe the few first episodes? And he told me where to go. I went and I watched Bleach there for the first time. I believe I watched the first 2 or 3 episodes there. And I clearly remembered it because when you went to those internet cafes, there was nothing really to help you listen to the audio. What you had to do, you had to come with either your earphones or some type of headphones. Earphones were the easiest because easy to transport and whatever. So I brought mine, but unfortunately the computer I was on, the plug for the earphone, it was not working. So the audio that was coming out of the computer, everyone could hear it. So I had to lower it down just a tiny bit. And then I watched my first episode of Bleach there. And let me tell you, I was hooked. And the reason why is because I was so used to your classic anime, your classic introduction of character, the way certain heroes or certain main characters are portrayed, you know, the good guys here and there. I was so used to that. My expectation was Bleach was going to do the same thing. But then in the intro, you see this guy beating up some dudes, going back home, having this introduction with his dad and his family. That is so funny and so unexpected. So in my head, I had this one expectation, but Bleach went the other way around, and plus it was also fun. I was like, yo, this is actually pretty interesting. Let's keep watching. And then the scene that sold me on Bleach and that just grabbed me was when Ichigo is in his bed, the light is off, and then Rukia just opened the windows. He's like, huh? Who are you? She gets in, she take a little bit of her sword out, and he's like, huh? Who the hell are you? What do you want? She's like, all serious, it's near. And then he kicks her, boom! I was like, yo, this is so funny. Oh my god. And I actually rewatched this yesterday. I was laughing so much, man. That scene sold me. It was unexpected to me. The vibe, the music, how different it was in so many ways from Naruto and One Piece. And that to me was unique. I was like, yo, this is so good. So I watched the first episode. I watched, I think, the second episode, maybe the third one also. And then I told my brother, I was like, you know what? I watched the first 3 episodes of Bleach. I am sold. It's pretty cool. He told me, yeah, you haven't seen anything yet. It gets better. So I was like excited. And then we finally got internet at home. And here is where everything that I'm about to say contributed to me and my attachment to Bleach, because we didn't have unlimited internet. It was timed. I believe it was maybe 80 or 90 hours in total. And the internet speed was decent, but you had to be strategic with it. Somehow, some way, I realized that there was the possibility for me to watch Bleach from home, because I had no idea that you could watch it online. I thought you had to download the episodes, and the connection wasn't fast enough for us to download that amount of episodes. I was like, no, it's impossible for me. But then I don't know how I found out, but I found out that you can watch it on some websites, streaming websites, for free online. So I did my research, I found a website, and I was like, yo, I am going to start watching Bleach. But I had trouble at the beginning. At some point, I realized something. When I used the connection at different time of the day, I had different results. So if I used the internet during like the high traffic hour, around maybe 5, 7 p.m., it was fairly slow. But if I used it late at night, very, very late at night, or very early in the morning, it was extremely fast. So I was like, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I am going to put an alarm around, I think it was 3:30 or 4 in the morning. And it was fast. It was exactly what I needed. But there was still an issue. Sometimes the internet will cut. And because of the player, I'll come back to this later. Because of the player on the website I was using, it was very hard for me to have a good experience and a continuous experience. It was always cutting and I had to reload. It was not very enjoyable. At some point, I had an internship and I still had to wake up early in the morning. So you know what? I'm gonna kill two birds with one stone. And I don't know how I discovered this, but I discovered that when I went to the attic, because we had an attic in my parents' home back home. If I go to the attic with a computer and with the small modem or whatever that device was, it was faster. If I was higher, it was way faster. I was like, you know what? This is perfect. So instead of me going there at 4 in the morning, because it was going to make noise, me going through the stairs. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go there a little bit later in the morning, but still early enough where not that many people are online. So I went there, I believe, between 5 and 6. So this is how I did it. I found a website to watch it. I don't remember which one it was, but I remember that the player they were using, and some of you remember this, was the Mega Upload player. I don't remember if it was their player exactly, but I believe it was. And at some point, YouTube also had a very similar player, or a similar, the player was doing the similar thing. And what it did was, actually, I'm going to show you this on the screen right now. So let's say this is the full timeline of an episode, right? This is the beginning, this is the end, and this is the player. How it worked is when you will press it, the episode will launch normally. But if you put pause, you will see on the background here, you have like a shadow of the timeline loading. The shadow will go, and that will indicate that that was the portion that was already preloaded and that you could just jump into it and the player will go seamlessly. The one that was still completely gray, you have to click and you have to wait. And the loading wasn't like one-to-one. It wasn't loading seamlessly. Sometimes it was slowing down, sometimes it was going faster. To maximize my time and the amount of time I was using for the connection, because remember, it was time. So I needed to make sure to use the smallest amount and have the biggest enjoyment possible. So what I did was each day I would watch 2 episodes. The way I did it is at the beginning of each episode. Now, side note, this is one of the reasons why even nowadays I skip the intros or the openings and the endings. So the reason, one of those reasons is one I'm about to explain, but the other one is the intros kinda, for me, spoils the visuals. So it spoils the different characters that are going to appear in the anime. I want to be able to go completely blind in an anime. That is also why I don't watch trailers for animes. I don't watch trailers. I just want to watch the anime from the beginning completely blind. That was one of the reasons. The other reason is this. Now, what I would do is, if you remember, in Bleach, at the beginning, not completely at the beginning, but at some point, I think during a little bit before the Aranka arc, you will always have these previews at the beginning. So when you clicked launch, boom, you have the preview of the episode. And I did not want it to get spoiled. I did not want it to have anything to do with it. So what I would do is I would put my hand like this so that I can only see the timeline. I will mute it so I don't hear anything. And then I will skip somewhere here, hoping I will land in the ending of the opening. And then I will go back and unmute and listen and let it load a little bit. If it was towards the end, or because I did it so many times that I recognize the ending credit, and you always have this little reminder at the beginning of each episode after the opening. So that's how I knew it was my cue. So what I would do then was I will pause this first episode and I will go on another page and launch the next episode, and I will do the exact same thing. So now I have 2 episodes, and remember, when you pause, you have the shadow on the background indicating what is already preloaded. Now I have these 2 episodes paused. As I am watching the first one, I will let it play all the way up to, I would say, this point. And by the time I get to this point, this episode would have already preloaded all the way around here. And the next episode would have already preloaded all the way, I'll say about the same halfway. And by the time I got on this point in the first episode, this entire episode would have loaded completely, and the next episode would have already completely loaded. So at that time, I'll pause this one and completely cut the connection. And then I was able to watch those 2 episodes with the smallest amount of time being used on the side of the internet. If at any point actually the connection was broken or stopped, when the episode is loading right here, if the connection stops, everything is going to be shadowed. So everything is going to be as if the complete episode was loaded. But when you're going to play the episode and get to that point, it's got to stop. So that is the reason why I needed to make sure to go in a place where the connection was still consistent, and that was in the attic. I did this every day of the week, so 5 days a week. And if the episode was so good, if I was on the street, if the connection was so fast, I will maybe add 1 episode. So I would say each week I'll probably watch 10 to maybe 12 episodes max. And I did this, people, get this. I did this from episode 3 all the way until episode 271 without skipping the fillers. At that time, I did not know anything about anime. So I thought, for example, let's say episode 120 is right after 119. So it's what I need to watch. So when it got to the point where the filler started, I was like, yeah, this is weird. This has nothing to do with what I was watching earlier. But whatever, I'm just gonna watch it because I loved it so much. I loved the BLEACH so much. So I watched all the fillers. I remember in all of that, I think I only skipped 1 episode out of all the 271 thing. And the reason why I remember the exact episode was because episode 271 is when Ulquiorra is fighting Ichigo, and they had this fight. That is why I remember that episode. So all of this jumping around through hoops to be able to enjoy BLEACH, all of this made it so that I had this special attachment to BLEACH. And this is why it is still to this day very nostalgic to me when I look back at all these episodes. When I look at all of them, all the different arcs, the society arc, all of that, I watched it back home with all these struggles with the internet connection. That is how I enjoyed BLEACH. And it has still to this day a very special place in my heart. And this is the reason why when I'm about to talk about what went wrong, I can't incorporate or I can't put all of this into it, because in my head, it's something that I can't hate. Yes, objectively, if I look at it, there are so many things that are wrong, but my heart and my love and my attachment, they overpower all of that. It doesn't matter what other people say, but at the same time, you need to be able to step back a little bit as a hardcore fan of whatever it is, a TV show, movie series, whatever it is. You need to be able to step back and really take into consideration that yes, I may love this, but it may not be perfect. It may have some critical flaws, and it doesn't matter. Even if they are critical flaws, I accept that they are those flaws, but I still love it. You have to be able to say that to yourself and really accept it. And I feel like so many people out there are not able to do that, and that is why they are going to die for their favorite animes. Whatever you say bad, they are there to defend it, and yeah, like it's not good. It's not good. You have to be able to step back a bit and realize that about your experience. Now that I am in this quest or in this journey to open an anime studio and to produce movies, to create stories, I have expectations. I have things that I want to see and things that I do not want to see in stories. And when I see those things that I don't like, I just can't not mention it. And this is the case with Bleach, more specifically the 1,000-Year Blood War Part 1. Even the parts after that, there are so many other things, but I'm not gonna go there. I'm just gonna mention this first thing that really killed me here. When you are a writer, when you are a storyteller, you are selling a lie to your audience. And the game here is to keep that lie alive from the beginning of the story all the way to the end. You want them to be involved and immersed in your quote-unquote lie so much that they are not looking around. The moment your audience just lean back and say, hold on a second, this doesn't add up. This doesn't add up. You as a writer failed. And that is exactly what you're trying to avoid at every given moment in your stories. Now, don't get me wrong, not every story is perfect. And even some of our greatest stories or greatest stories in fiction out there, some of them have some holes here and there, but some of them have very little. Those issues are so little that in the grand scheme of things, you're willing to forgive. You're willing to let it slide, let's say it that way. But some other, like the one I'm going to talk about here, are so in your face that there is absolutely no way I can look away and say, okay, no, that's fine. Absolutely not. So let's talk about it. Bleach, 1,000-Year Blood War, Part 1. We're going to focus our attention here from episode 4 all the way to episode 8. So episode 4, this is where the invasion happens. The Soul Society is invaded by the enemy. You have dead bodies left and right. They are setting the tone. This is war. They are here to destroy and kill every single man alive here. This is fantastic. I love this. This pretty much tells the audience, hey, this is war. These guys are not messing around and they are powerful. And before that, they had reports that those guys were sealing their bankais. But they discovered that no, they were not sealed. They were stolen. This is when Byakuya faces Asnot and realized that he stole his bankai. And this happens with every other captain that unleash his Bankai at that time. At this point, things are dire and the fights are going on. We're going to focus our attention here in the fight between Byakuya and Asuna. Byakuya fights well, and by the way, this is a 2 versus 1. The enemy is extremely powerful. He has no problem dealing with both of them at the same time. And Byakuya basically tells Renji, listen, I am going to sacrifice myself and I am fighting so that you, as you see us fight, see the openings and see where his weak points are. Then Byakuya proceeds to fight Asuna, but is defeated by his own Bankai. This is a key important note here, by his own Bankai. This goes from episode 5 to episode 7. I think this happens in the episode 7 when Ichigo gets in the battlefield, sees the destruction and how everything is messed up. It goes straight to Byakuya, and you have this beautiful scene where Byakuya basically says, listen man, I am not in the position to ask you, but I'm still gonna ask you, can you protect the Soul Society? This was a beautiful scene. Then you have Byakuya giving pretty much his final words, and we see this scene where his Zanpakuto is deteriorating and he let it fall. Beautiful. Pretty much meaning he's not gonna fight anymore and he's pretty much dead, especially after being hit by his own Bankai. Now, all the way up to this point, everything was good. Maybe except the part where Rukia turns her back to the enemy. That was stupid. But apart from that, everything is good. The tone is there. They are not messing around and bodies are flying left and right. That was good. But this is where things turn for the worst. Episode 8. You have the captains that are around talking about how they couldn't find the body of their main captain and all that. And then you have this guy coming with a report, and he says this.
ご報告いたします。朽木白夜6番隊隊長およびザラキケンパチ11番隊隊長ともに一命を取り留められました。一命を取り留められました。一命を取り留められました。
Both are alive. Are you kidding me? I remember distinctively when this happened and when I read both are alive, I paused the episode and I screamed. I said, are you kidding me? I couldn't believe this nonsense. Both are alive? Kenpachi, I can understand, he's a beast. But Byakuya? Impossible. Impossible. And I'm going to explain why. There is no way he can be alive. Now, before I get even there, the first thing that disappoints me in all of this is that Kubo fooled all of us. Well, he fooled me. Because in the previous episode and the lead up to all of this, it is established that these enemies are ruthless. They do not mess around. They will kill you. They are strong. They stole Bankais, which is the ace of pretty much any captain. And it is clear in the way it is portrayed through the episode, I think episode 6 to 7, that the way Byakuya is defeated, it is done. Nothing can save him. It is so clear. The anime is set up, especially when Ichigo comes back and sees Byakuya's body. And they have this moment. Like everything points out to him being dead. Now, some of you are going to say, when Byakuya's sword is shown being completely deteriorating, that pretty much says and tells the audience that he is not going to fight anymore. And this is why the guy that reports says also, when he does his report, that it's unlikely for them to ever be able to fight the game. It says that. Now, you can say that is the representation of his sword being deteriorated. fine. However, there's this thing in any story called consistency. And in order for you to sell your line, as I was saying earlier, things that you've established in your story needs to be consistent regardless of who they are applied to, whether the bad guys or the good guys. In this case, it has already been shown previously how powerful Byakuya's Bankai is. If we look back at Byakuya's fight where he used his Bankai, I think in anything that is canon in the anime, it's only about 4 fights, if I remember correctly. 4 fights when he used Bankai. But I'm only going to take the closest example next to that arc, which is his fight against Tsukishima in episode 364. In that episode, at the end of the fight, the way he defeats Tsukishima is by holding a small amount of his Bankai in his palm. And that, when he released it, results in a big, decent hole in Tsukishima's body. Now, with that information, let me remind you that when he fights Asnat just showers. It's not just a small amount. He showers Byakuya not once, twice, and not for like a split second, for a good 2 seconds. So there is absolutely no way that after being showered by such an attack, Byakuya survives. Zero. You cannot tell me otherwise. And even if there is an explanation for him to survive, there is another aspect to this that we need to take into consideration, and that is the creative aspects. Like I said before, this whole setup, everything pointed to him dying. And if we look at the story so far, we have seen Byakuya's fight already multiple times. Byakuya dies, a beautiful fight, beautiful way to end the character. Then Rukia gets her revenge against Asnat. That was going to be fantastic, beautiful. This was the perfect moment to kill off a character. But for whatever reason, Kubo decides, no, this guy needs to survive. And this is infuriating to me. Now, like I said, I am not going to talk about the following parts of this arc, but this is not the only time this happens. This happens like with 4 or 5 more characters after this. It makes zero sense. It completely breaks the immersion. You can't take this seriously anymore. You just can't. After some bull crap like this, how am I supposed to take any sort of threat against your characters seriously? And this doesn't happen only with Bleach. This happens with so many other stories. I think about One Piece. One Piece does this on the regular. They make you believe that one character is dead, but guess what? No, he survived somehow. Somehow Palpatine survived. Somehow Byakuya survived. Bunch of bull crap. That was the breaking point. Like I said before, I'm not taking into consideration the first half of Bleach, so from episode 1 to episode 368, I believe. I'm not taking into consideration that because, like I said, it has a specific place in my heart. I've matured, and now when I'm looking at 1000 Year Blood War, I see it differently than when I was watching that first part. I see it very differently. Now I'm able to see things for what they are. And I cannot sit here and tell you that this is good. No, it is trash. It is trash. And this comes from someone that loved Bleach. People, this breaks my heart. I cannot emphasize that When that guy came with his report, I could not believe. I was so disappointed. So disappointed by this. It is some trash writing. I'm sorry. This is trash. This is like 1 + 1 = 2 type of thing. It's not even that difficult. You have something that you have established. Follow through. Don't pull some bull crap. Oh my God, no. I don't even want to talk about this anymore. We as writer or future writers need to have this in mind. It is a very simple rule. And I've said this in my previous video about One Piece. This applies to any story. The rule is the following. If you do not want a character to die, it is fine. However, do not put said character in a situation where, according to the rules that you have established in that word and the circumstances you're putting that character in, all of them logically concludes to that character dying. If you do not want that to happen, do not put a character in that situation. Because if that character survives, it does so much bad rep for you. If you do this repeatedly, like in One Piece, the result is that whatever, you're basically telling your audience, whatever these characters face as challenges, nothing, and I say nothing, is going to happen to them. Absolutely nothing. Which results in killing off any tension when you have any sort of stakes. It doesn't matter what you put in front of the audience, they are not going to believe in whatever challenges you're putting, because you have proven so many times that regardless of the challenge, nothing's gonna happen. So what is the reason for the audience to keep watching? And this is exactly why I stopped watching One Piece. And unfortunately, after this, like I've said, it happened again and again. A bunch of nonsense, man. Come on. Man, people, this is so simple. This is 1 + 1 = 2. Keep it 1 + 1 = 2 throughout the entire story. What is so hard about this? Oh my good Lord. Anyway, I think I've said what I had to say. This was a complete treason. Complete disappointment. Yeah, I've said my piece. I'm still gonna watch Bleach. I'm still gonna watch how it ends. But man, this is trash. It is trash. I'm sorry, Kubo. Trash, man. Come on.